A beautiful afternoon to you. Welcome to Business This Week on ITV. I am Blessing Aichi. Now today we'll take a look at microfinance in Nigeria, impact, challenges as well as prospects. Before we do that, you know it's a tradition of the show to begin with a roundup of business activities for the week. That will come up in a bit. Stay tuned. A first story in Business Roundup says the International Monetary Fund (IMF) has increased Nigeria's growth prospect to 2.6% and 2.7% for 2021 and 2022 respectively, despite reducing the rate of global growth prospects due to the COVID-19 Delta variant. According to the October 2021 World Economic Outlook report, which was released, the growth forecast for Nigeria was originally pegged at 2.5% in 2021 and 2.6% in 2022. However, in view of the 3.7% 2021 and 2022 growth forecast for sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria is 1.1% behind in 2021 and 1% behind in 2022. Despite the slight positive outlook for Nigeria, the IMF has slightly downgraded global growth projections for 2021. The projection for 2021 was downgraded by 0.1% to 5.9%, while the global growth forecast for 2022 remained unchanged at 4.9%. The IMF justifies this, stating that supply chain disruptions negatively affected recovery in advanced economies, while lack of access to COVID-19 vaccines held back prospects for the emerging economies. The Economic Counselor Director of Research, IMF, Geeta Gopinath, said risk to the economy had increased due to the Delta variant, with the pandemic disrupting supply chains and fueling inflation. Nigeria saw its crude oil production increase slightly last month to about 1.25 million barrels per day, which is 360,000 barrels per day lower than the quota given to it by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. According to secondary sources, Nigeria's production increased to 1.45 million barrels per day in September, from about 1.30 million barrels per day in August, compared to its OPEC quota of 1.61 million barrels per day. The 13-member group said its crude oil production averaged 27.33 million barrels per day in September, higher by 0.49 million barrels per day month on month. The chief commodities economist at the London-based Capital Economics, Caroline Baines, said in a note on Wednesday that even if OPEC raised quotas, there remain doubts about higher supply. She said OPEC moved closer to its collective target output last month. However, it is now clear that if the group were to answer calls to raise output, it would involve abandoning the current quota system and allowing a few producers with available capacity to produce more. She noted that the group's September output was 390,000 barrels per day below its total output target, owing to significant underperformance in August. Other than that, there is considerable uncertainty about whether Nigeria can continue to raise output, but the September data do at least offer some hope that OPEC production can draw closer to its target. Bain noted that the recent rise in oil prices had led to political pressure on the group to raise its quotas. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced that it had engaged the staff of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, on capital markets training in a bid to tackle financial crimes in the market. SEC described the training tagged Enlightenment Program on the capital markets and the investigation of capital market complaints as one of the strategies of the SEC to drive the development of the market. The Director, SEC Lagos Zonal Office, Mr. Stephen Falomo, says sharing knowledge with the EFCC would help achieve a well-regulated market that would be dynamic, fair, and equitable. He said the Special Enlightenment Program was aimed at intimating the officers of EFCC on the workings of the capital markets in general and enhancing the investigative skills required to handle capital market-related complaints. Falamo said the EFCC is responsible for the investigation and prosecution of financial crimes, and a large chunk of complaints and infractions in the capital markets can be deemed to be financial crimes. According to him, the relationship between SEC and EFCC dates back almost 2 decades, and 2 commissions have also maintained a cordial and mutually beneficial relationship. That's the complete business roundup. We'll take a break. When we return, to be time for us to talk business. Remember, we're looking at microfinance in Nigeria. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned. So today we're talking about microfinance in Nigeria, impacts, challenges, as well as prospects. Now, I've been joined by 2 key players in the microfinance subsector. Now, the first person I have here with me is Dr. Timothy Ogbebo, who is the MD of Prosperity Microfinance Bank Limited, and is also the Vice Chairman, National Association of Microfinance Banks, NAB South Zone. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Blessing, for having me.
It's my pleasure. Yeah. And also, I have the person of Victor Owoba, who is MD CEO of Trust Fund Microfinance Bank, and also the Chairman, NAB Edo State. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Blessing.
Okay, so you agree with me that I have 2 persons who are not just microfinance experts, but they are actively involved in microfinance subsector. But let me begin with Dr. Ogbebo.
Yeah.
Microfinance, what essentially is microfinance?
Okay, thank you. Microfinance is a process whereby financial services are availed to those we consider the bottom of the pyramid. And they are availed in small bits, like the word means, microfinance, small finance to micro, small, and medium enterprises. But it's not just finance, it's all the activities that surround finance, platform for them to be able to save, platform for payment services, they want to make payments from one individual to the other, financial literacy, and so many accounting, basic accounting for their businesses. These things are all embedded in microfinance.
Yeah. Okay, from what you said, how does microfinance differ from the conventional commercial banks, Mr. Victor?
Okay, thank you. Well, the normal commercial banks, like we all know, they are deposit money banks, and they deal with other businesses that are not micro.
Okay.
The large companies, the PZs of these worlds, and all the conglomerates. But for microfinance banks, we just deal with the lower end of the market. And of course, there are some activities that we are not allowed to go into. But basically, everything that commercial banks do, most of them we also do. You can open savings account, current accounts. You can open a fixed deposit account with the banks, and you can borrow money. You can do all the other things that Dr. Ogbebo just said. So the basic thing is just the amounts of money and the target markets. Our target markets are the bottom of those at the bottom of the pyramids, not the large companies, the corporates, and all that. So we deal mainly with the small market women, the micro, the artisans, and other individuals.
Okay. Now, before microfinance bank, for the advent of microfinance banks, we had community banks, but all of that changed around 2005. Now, since that, from that time to now, what has been the impact of microfinance institutions in Nigeria. You said your target market are those at the lower cadre, the financial class, so to speak, the marketsmen, those who don't have access to funds, basically. So what impact has microfinance institutions had since inception?
Okay, the impact has been so much. I tell you that many of the small traders you find around town, not only in Benin, in all parts of Nigeria, many of them benefit from services of microfinance banks. Some of them do not have access to, they are shy, some do not even have the courage to be able to even approach the conventional commercial banks to do businesses. So oftentimes we are the ones that they run to when they need to open savings accounts, when they need small finances, small loans for their businesses, when they want to make payments, they run to us. And we have contributed a lot to the growth of the economy. That is the truth, because access to credit is fundamental for businesses to thrive. When people have business ideas and they do not have the required finance to be able to actualize them, the dream becomes moribund. So we are the ones that have been in the forefront of giving financial services to both the middle and then the lowest individuals, micro businesses and individuals in society. Now we talked about community bank. It was community banks metamorphosized to become microfinance banks. Yes. The CBN was of the view that there was need to bring in more regulation. Let's look more closely into the activities of community banks. And so the idea and regulations surrounding microfinance bank was better with the regulatory framework which came up in 2005. And since then, the subsector has been waxing stronger. We have bigger microfinance banks now. We have microfinance banks that are able to reach a larger number of people, more capitalized microfinance banks compared to the community banks that we had at that time. So the conversion from microfinance to community banks to microfinance bank was a very good development for the economy.
Okay. As part of your functions too, you offer, you help people save. You help your customers save. So in the area of financial inclusion, how well as microfinance institutions be able to bridge the gap? Because we have so many persons, so many business people even in the informal sector. Okay,
I'll tell you something. There are two striking differences. Areas where microfinance banks have come to assist. One, the first thing is that most of our customers, most of our clients are merely unstructured. They don't have the basic financial accounting, they don't maintain in regular books. That's one part. And these customers can never be served by commercial banks. If you don't have your trial balance, you don't have audited accounts, no commercial bank will touch you. But you come to microfinance bank, we'll look at it. We have other ways of assessing your loans. And again, the second area where we have bridged the gap is the locations. Most rural areas, you hardly find commercial banks there. It's only the microfinance banks that you can get in very rural areas. And in many places, you don't even get a commercial banks there. So microfinance banks are closer to the people, the farmers, the artisans, the peasants. Those people cannot even approach any commercial bank because the amounts they need are quite small. We understand their businesses, and in most cases, we form them into groups, smaller groups, and educate them. You find out that somebody comes to a microfinance bank, he's never entered a bank before, he's never had any bank credits. So we first start by enlightening them, form them into groups, train them about how to keep their books, basic bookkeeping, before not start telling them the difference between your money and bank money, how you keep your books and all that stuff. So all that services, commercial banks are not structured to offer, but microfinance banks do.
Okay, in offering loans, how do you come by? How available do you have funds? Because a lot of persons now like you said, come to microfinance banks, those who cannot go to commercial banks. So how available is funds, loanable funds, for microfinance institutions?
Well, it's been a challenge, but we are coping. It's been a challenge. The challenge is there because many persons in our society, when they have funds, they naturally prefer to put their money in commercial banks at the detriment of microfinance banks. But we are there to serve the public. We find one way or the other to be able to get funds from individuals, fixed deposit, also frequent injection of capital by the owners of the business, also frees some funds for us to be able to grant loans. So it's tough, but we are moving on, and we are able to survive. But it would have been better, we would have been able to reach more persons in society if we have larger pool of funds.
Okay, let's talk about spread now. At first, when microfinance started, there were just few of them you could see, but these days, almost everywhere you find a microfinance bank. Doesn't that worry you in terms of the way microfinance banks spread? Like you could have some that are substandard. Is there a regulation that checks this kind of practice? Yeah,
I'll tell you. I think at this point we need to differentiate between microfinance banks and microfinance institutions.
Okay.
Microfinance banks are regulated.
Okay.
Just almost, in fact, all the regulations you have for commercial banks, we also have them for microfinance banks. The insurance, the NDIC insurance, all our depositors are insured. But you have some microfinance institutions that are not regulated by the central bank.
Okay.
So I'm sure you are talking about some other microfinance institutions. But with microfinance banks, I tell you, as of today, this country is still underbanked. You still find some places in this country that you don't even have a microfinance bank. And so, how many do we have in Edo State, for example? We just have 21 microfinance banks. 1 is national, 3 are state, and 17 are unit microfinance banks. That still cannot cater for the needs of banking. You see, financial inclusion is being preached by central bank. We still have a lot to do. There are still a lot of people that have not come to the bracket, the banking sector. So I don't think that there is a proliferation of microfinance banks yet.
Okay.
We still have a lot to do.
Yeah. Okay, how do you handle competition? Because the catch for microfinance banks is to be loan. People go to microfinance bank because easily they'll get loan. But these days we find a lot of loan apps operating online, and even without seeking a loan, you get SMS, they're ready to offer you loan. Is that a competition to you? Do you see that as competition?
Well, it depends on how you view competition. If you view competition from a positive aspect, you will find that competition will spur you to do better. The space is big enough. We are talking about 200 million Nigerians.
Okay.
The space is big enough. As at the last count, we have about 916 microfinance banks. Like my colleague has said, it's still not enough. So there are still many people who desire financial services, especially at the grassroots, and do not have the opportunity of having them. In some cases, the distance between their businesses or locations to the next bank is far, one constraint or the other. So we still need more microfinance banks. The competition is not a problem. If you view competition as a positive challenge, you grow. This space is big for us to compete and then to do well.
Okay, now let's talk about challenges. If you don't have challenges, I'm sure you'll be spread across every nook and cranny of Nigeria right now, and everybody will have access to microfinance bank. What are the challenges limiting the spread of microfinance banks?
Maybe we'll start from the perception of microfinance banks. It's a great threat to us. People, the investing public, like my colleague said, when you have money you want to save, you first run to the commercial banks.
Okay.
But when you have an LPO, you have a need that is not so large. The first place you go to is a microfinance bank.
Yes.
So the people view microfinance banks as just, oh, institutions where you just go and borrow money.
Okay.
Okay? But so the major challenge, first and foremost, is ability to attract cheap deposits. You find that people that go to other commercial banks and are willing to accept X interest rates for their deposit, like fixed deposit. When they come to commercial bank, to microfinance bank, they insist on X plus. They say it's risk. But what kind of risk are you talking about? When the same regulation that is the same authorities that are regulating the commercial banks are the same CBN and NDIC that are regulating the microfinance banks. So the first challenge is perception. Second challenge, ability to attract cheap deposits, because not every individual still has that confidence that their monies are 100% safe in a microfinance bank. And that insinuation is very, very wrong. The microfinance banks are as safe as the commercial banks. Thirdly, of course, there are some services that we are not allowed by CBN to provide.
Okay.
We are not allowed to go into FX. Okay. We're not allowed to go into real estate. We're not allowed to bank government account except for collection or for collection or salaries and all that stuff. Pensions. Then, you know, so the other challenge we have is capital. You know, there's this current threat now. We need to increase our capital, and CBN has been quite understanding. It just coincided when the CBN issued the instruction. That was when this COVID challenge came.
Okay.
And so, but CBN has been quite understanding. They've given us some leeway, but we still think that the rate at which we are being asked to increase is quite astronomical. But we are still dealing with that. But every microfinance bank is trying to meet that challenge because CBN is Lord and Master. When they say it, you need to obey. So right now, the challenge most of us have is raising the capital that CBN says we will move up to. And quite a number of us are trying a lot of things to do to make sure we meet it up. And okay. God will help us.
Okay, what about manpower? How do you cope with having, because your mode of operation is different from that of the commercial banks. You don't see commercial banks moving from one market to the other, trying to keep up with customers. So how do you cope with workforce?
Well, the difference between the operational methodology of commercial banks and microfinance banks the differences are not so much. Okay. I tell you that even some commercial banks are beginning to look downwards, you know, to look at smaller customers. So it's not so much of a big difference. Those who have worked in commercial, many of us who find ourselves in microfinance today have reached very high positions in the commercial before we came in. This is just to tweak it a little bit, tweak what we do in commercial bank a little bit, and you find yourself in microfinance bank. While commercial banks, most of the staff handle very large volumes of credit and very big time customers, we have to do with fairly large and small customers. So the first thing is to deal with your orientation. Okay. Know that this time you should be able to work with the average market woman, those who need 100,000, 200, those who are saving in bits. So the difference is not so much. Oftentimes people easily move from one commercial bank to microfinance bank, and they are able to cope as long as they get self-reorientation and they are trained in the process of working in the microfinance banks. Okay.
Now, taking off from something you mentioned, tweaking what you do in commercial banks.
Yes.
But, you know, in commercial banks, at the points there were mergers, and that's how we got to see some banks that are very strong today. They had to consolidate. Can that happen with microfinance bank in a way to win the trust of customers?
Yeah. Size is power.
Okay.
Size is strength. And the bigger you are, the better you can serve
Okay.
The further your reach to your customers. And in fact, one of the ways that we have been advised to meet the new minimum capital requirement is mergers and acquisitions.
Okay.
So that is on the table because there are some, you see, even when you have customers that are small, over time they grow big. And you must continue to support them. And how much funds are you going to be able to generate or contribute as investors, the initial owners of the bank? So mergers, yes, is on the table. Mergers are possible, and mergers are, in fact, some microfinance are already considering mergers and acquisitions in order to meet the new capital requirements.
Okay, now let's talk about loan repayments. That's one issue I know may be a challenge for microfinance bank. How do you ensure loan repayments without having to recourse to other means, maybe seize assets like the commercial banks do? How do microfinance ensure loan repayments?
Loan repayment is there always, but for all financial institutions, once you get yourself in granting loans, even those who are individuals who do money lending, we all face the same challenge of loan repayment. But in microfinance, if you understand the people you are dealing with and you structure the way you give the loan and the repayment pattern, you find that sometimes, yes, you will have some default, but most times you are able to deal with these people and then get your money back. So most times you need to understand the cash flow pattern of these individuals we are dealing with, and then structure your loans and your processes to be able to match those cash flow, and then you are home and dry and you are able to get their money. This is not to say that we don't have issues with loan collection, but we are doing well. We are marching on. Because you want to do the business of banking, you must face the issue of loan collection and default in some cases. But that will not say you should run out of the business. Okay. Yeah.
Now, in 2020, reports came out that microfinance banks increased their lending rates by the rate at which they lended to customers by 82%, making it one of the biggest lenders in credit lenders. So a lot of persons want to key into that, but some businesses do not know how to go about it. How can MSMEs and even individuals leverage microfinance banks in terms of acquiring loans?
Okay, I think the first thing to do is to approach a microfinance bank. Approach a microfinance bank, open an account. You open an account, you'll be allocated an account officer. Then the account officer will put you through what you need to do. All you need just to do is, of course, meet all the KYC. You know, there are certain documents you have to provide, not as strict as the major ones, but there are certain documents like your passport photograph, address verification, and a few other things. Those basic things. So approach a microfinance bank, then discuss your business with your account officer. Microfinance banks are able to look at your business and decipher what kind of loans you need. I'll give you an example. Because of the nature and the caliber of people we deal with, we structure some of these repayments on collection of it on a daily basis.
Okay.
So if you are a market woman that sells on a daily basis, so your cash flow is there every. So we can tell you, madam, instead of waiting till the end of the month to pay, or the end of 3 months to pay, can we be coming to collect on a daily basis?
That I have seen.
And it's so easy for them. And you find out that these micro customers, they are the most obedient when it comes to loan repayments. Although we have some challenges, you know, because, I mean, debts, sudden deaths of some of these people, and at times they operate from illegal places. Give somebody a loan today, by tomorrow or by next week, the shops have been demolished, or fire raises them down and all that stuff. But we structure our collections to suit your business pattern. That's what we do.
One of the aims of setting up microfinance institutions and banks by the CBN was poverty eradication. Now, how does microfinance banks benefit individuals? We talked about businesses, but if you don't own a business, how does it benefit you as an individual?
Well, like I said, you've mentioned it, one of the focal points in establishment of microfinance bank is, like you said, to alleviate poverty. And poverty is rife in the land. And I tell you that microfinance bank is doing a lot to reduce poverty in this land. It's not only small businesses that we attend to. We also attend to low-income earners. We attend to people who are employed, either in government parastatals or in the ministries or in private firms. We attend to them, and we help bridge their financial needs. There are a lot of people who are salary earners. Maybe they are not able to save money to acquire a refrigerator or a plasma TV. They come to us, and we look at their salaries and we advise them, and then we are able to structure something for them. So we deal with individuals too, low-income earners. We deal with micro enterprises. We deal with SMEs. And I will tell you, go to these small businesses in town, using Benin as an example. You will find that many of them have one financial support or other from microfinance banks. Those in the markets, Ecusa market, urban market, name those markets. These women who are at the bottom of the pyramid are assisted seriously, largely by microfinance banks, such that they are now able to contribute to payment of school fees and meeting the cost of running their homes and supporting their spouses, either their husbands or their wives. So microfinance is doing a lot. Without there are many people we give, many of these businesses we give loan, who cannot, most times they don't even have acceptable collateral security. But in microfinance, there's what we call collateral substitution. For some of them, we form them into groups, and then peer just guarantee, group cross guarantee among the group members is sufficient for us to give them loans. And because of peer pressure, understanding their business, understanding their cash flow, many of them are able to complete their repayment without issues.
Okay, now let's look at regulation. I know we talked a bit about regulation. How has regulation of the subsector helped or even made it difficult for microfinance institutions and even banks to thrive?
Well, I see regulation, or we in the microfinance banking sector, we see regulation in a positive way. Regulation is to help us. Without regulations, see, when you are driving a business and you are not regulated, there are times either for need to make more profit, you just veer off. In Nigeria, regulation has helped us. Okay, the community banks that were there before were not as regulated, or were not even regulated, or as regulated as microfinance banks now. But now, since CBN started regulating microfinance banks, you see that a lot of things are in place. You are having fewer incidences of banks going moribund. CBN visits, apart from visitation, there are certain criteria we need to meet. There are liquidity ratios, there are sectoral allocations, there are a lot of other conditions they need to meet. And those things help us to stay alive, and they help us to continue to serve our customers for a much longer period. So regulation for me has been a blessing to microfinance banking.
Okay, you want to add to that?
Just to add to that, we are regulated also by the NDIC. You know, that should give comfort also to depositors and those who want to use the services of microfinance banks. That gives them some comfort. They should not just be overly afraid of microfinance banks. Our deposits are insured by the NDIC. They are also one of our regulators. Just like my colleague has said, the CBN is there, NDIC is there, and we pay premium for our deposits yearly, such that we do not pay if any microfinance bank goes under. The average depositor is assured of a certain amount of his deposit.
Okay, just like commercial banks.
Just like commercial banks, yes. The commercial banks too have the coverage of NDIC, like microfinance banks. So we are not just, and regulation has done us a big favor. We are now on our toes. We know that we can be sanctioned at any time. And so we try to keep our books very good, as well as ensuring that we meet all the conditions for operating the license that we have been given by the CBN.
So let's talk about addressing the challenges. How do you think the perception that people have about microfinance banks that makes it not a go-to place when one has need to deposit money or even to transact businesses that are within the confines of or within the scope of microfinance banks? How can those perceptions be changed?
I think there are there are a few ways that they can be checked. One of them is what we are doing right now, enlightenment, enlightening the public about microfinance banking, our services, and what we can do. Secondly, which is even more important, is differentiating between a microfinance bank and a microfinance institutions. There are a lot of institutions that are just...
Is there a clear-cut difference?
There is a clear-cut difference.
What is that?
Microfinance banks are regulated by CBN. We are licensed.
But the person who is to the layman, how would the layman know? If I see a building and I know they lend money, I can deposit money there. I see another building, which is a microfinance bank. Yes. How do I differentiate between the two of them?
One major way of differentiating is finding out. If you can go in and ask them, are you a bank?
What if you tell me yes, just to get me to bank with them?
You can do your check.
They will not.
But the artisan, the marketing, would they have that time? Or would they be able to carry out such research? What's the clear-cut thing you would see in a microfinance institution that you would, or you find in a microfinance bank that you would not be able to find in a microfinance institution?
Well, NDIC has helped us a lot. Because there's this sticker that if any bank, whether commercial or a microfinance bank, if you are insured by NDIC, there's this sticker they give to you, which you place on your doors or your offices. And when somebody comes in, the first thing he sees that, oh, this institution is insured by NDIC. And that gives him some kind of comfort. Then again, there's a lot of, these days of social media, you can check it up. You can Google microfinance banks in Nigeria. If you're in doubt, come to our secretariat, NAB secretariat, and find out, oh.
No, I'm talking about the benefits, because for some persons who are already transacting with commercial banks, they know these procedures. But the target markets are the artisans, you know, those on the street. Now, how can they do this? They may not have the time. They may not even have the skill to do all of this research. So that's what I'm asking for, you know, evidences that are just clear for you to know, oh, these, for instance, it's easy to identify a commercial bank and differentiate that from a microfinance bank. So because there are some things that people have become used to over time. Now, you talked about a sticker. Beside a sticker,
I think every microfinance bank
in terms of service
has a well-limited signboard, so you see the identification there. This is XYZ Microfinance Bank.
In terms of service, like the packages that are offered in microfinance banks and those offered in microfinance institutions, are there differences?
Yes, there are differences. Let me tell you, the truth is that for MFIs, we call MFIs microfinance institutions who are not licensed by the CBN. They are not allowed to accept deposit from the public. That is one difference. But some do in breach of their registration. So the only place you can go to open a fixed deposit account, open a savings account, and start depositing is a microfinance bank. And like I said, microfinance banks are more structured. Just like my colleague says, they are more structured. Oftentimes, you will see at least a better looking building. You will see a signage that says, this is so and so microfinance bank. Then when you go in, you are going to see a structured environment compared to some microfinance institutions, just a few persons, even our mode of dressing and others. Maybe
another thing that can differentiate a microfinance bank from these fly-by-night institutions is
magic banks.
Yes, is the kind of returns they are offering you. By the time you go to an institution that tells you bring X amount, and in 3 months I'm going to multiply it by 10. Don't fall for such things, because it's not just going to be possible. So when it is too good, then take a step back and find out. No microfinance bank will tell you, deposit money with us, after 2 months, come and take 3 times the money you put there. From where? Because you're going to do business with it. So first, don't be greedy as a depositor to an institution. Find out what are the rates. You can find out from CBN website.
Okay.
There's a list of microfinance banks there. Okay. You can even Google it. Google microfinance banks in Nigeria.
Like you said, some of them are peasants. They may not be able to go to the west, but you know, the average market woman has somebody who is in school,
who they can
ask to help them. My son, I've been patronizing this microfinance. Help me find out who they are microfinance bank. You know, but I tell you, most times, if you ask staff of microfinance institutions, if you ask them, they are part of the business. They are part of the microfinance industry.
I was going to ask, like, apart from the regulatory issues with microfinance institutions. Don't they also help to grow the economy together with microfinance banks? Apart from the issues that they may have because they are not regulated and because they are not allowed to do certain things that they may be even running afoul of, don't they help?
If you ask me, my honest opinion, yes, they'll be able to give some financing to some people. But if you ask me, they've done more harm than good. Because a lot of people have been hurt. A lot of people have put money in institutions that they think are microfinance institutions. 6 months, 3 months down the line, they are nowhere to be found. And we have a good number of them. As an association, Nigeria Association of Microfinance Banks, we are on a daily basis trying to find out such institutions and get them reported.
Okay, so the association also acts as a check body.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, in the COVID-19 pandemic, how has it affected microfinance banks?
Like all other sectors of the economy, we have been affected. But, you know, all sectors of the economy are also putting in place methodologies, systems, processes to overcome those challenges so that their effect on your business is minimized. Okay. So the one big aspect is loan default. You know, the economy is hard. Many people will tell you now that the economy is biting, and it has impact on loan repayment. Some businesses have been, their strengths have been reduced. Some have been wiped. Their comparative advantage have been wiped out by the effect of the global pandemic. But we find a way out of it to ensure that we still stay afloat and remain relevant, and then we are also able to serve the public without any hitch.
Well, but I think our target markets were more affected by the pandemic.
The artisans.
Because because they are most vulnerable. They don't have the shock. They don't have the ability to resist shock. An average businessman, I don't want to mention names, they have like different lines of business.
Okay.
Some businessmen, they deal in sugar, they deal in cement, they deal in iron. So
they have multiple streams of income.
Of income. But our kind of customers just have one. The woman selling akara is only selling akara. The one selling rice is only selling rice, provisions. So when pandemic came, the first set of people they hit really hard were our customers, our target customers. And we can see, and what we did as microfinance bank was to sit down with them and restructure their facilities. Say, hey, we understand that, oh, you took this money, X amount, you're supposed to pay in 6 months. This has happened. Okay, can you sit down? What do you think we can do? For some, we even gave more money. For some, we elongated the repayment time just to suit them.
Okay.
So,
apart from financial services, helping people keep their money and also lend money to them. Now, the microfinance is the closest to the people. Do they also get financial literacy?
Yes, yes. I tell you that, you know, we do a lot to integrate these people into the financial system, because it's not easy dealing with somebody who has virtually no knowledge of banking. And so one of the things we do is, before we disburse our loan, approve these loans, we as much as possible give them some basic financial tips even what they should do in their businesses. Not only that, we also give them basic accounting training, very basic ones. Look, you are going to Lagos Street to buy your goods, or you are going to Onitsha to buy your goods. When you come back, have a notebook where you are able to record these things. At the end of every day, if you are not recording item by item you are selling, but at the end of every day, you should be able to say, this is the amount you have sold. So sometimes too, when we also go for visitation, we ask for such books. So then for those that are not really micro, or let me call them medium enterprises, we encourage some of them to get maybe somebody who O&D accounting, get somebody to look at your books, do some bookkeeping.
Okay.
So we've impacted on them to enable them know that, look, then even how to pay yourself from your income.
Okay.
From your
so
proceeds.
all of this education that provided for the artisans and then those who are operating,
so
those who come to the microfinance banks and institutions.
Yes.
Okay, on a final note, the market seems to be very wide and yet untapped enough by microfinance institutions and even banks. So how can this prospect in the markets be tapped, particularly as it concerns financial inclusion?
I think that we just have to do more. The microfinance banks and even the commercial banks, we have to do more. Because there are still some areas, I think we need to design some more.
How can the rural areas be captured?
Yes. First is expansion, geographical expansion. Try and open branches in those areas where you don't have branches. If you have the kind of license that you can open branches. That's number one. Number two, these people in these areas can form themselves into societies.
Okay, like cooperatives.
Cooperatives. Okay. And approach. Even there are some places where we operate, we don't have branches there. But because you have them in cooperative societies, you are dealing with some kind of structured kind of people. That's one way we can also do it. Then I think government can also help.
Okay.
Help
how can government come in?
Yes. Infrastructures in these rural areas that can help, because you can't go and open a bank where you don't have roads, you don't have net lights, you don't have in the network for internet. Because let me tell you something, most microfinance banks today are highly digitalized. We have engaged technology so that the kind of things we do in microfinance banks now, we are even challenging the commercial banks. A lot of microfinance banks, they have their apps. You have ATMs, you can do online transfers, and a whole lot of other things. So if we don't have these infrastructures in these rural areas, we can't operate there. Again, talk about security. We have some microfinance banks that have been sacked from some location because there's no police station in that area. And when the bad boys come, they are left on their own. So government also has to help in spreading infrastructures to these other rural areas, such that businesses like microfinance bank can thrive.
All right, now, so in terms of policy, how can government also help? He's talked about infrastructure, but as a matter of policy, what policy can be made to help the spread of microfinance institutions and banks?
Well, I think there are so many things that government can do. The microfinance banks have that are often private investment. I've done a lot. If government comes in, it will be a very good thing, because, like you said, there are so many unbanked and underbanked individuals in the society. There are more people, and the number of people you bring into the banking system, the better for the economy.
Okay.
When people do business, they either it is services or they are producing one good or the other, they are contributing to the GDP of the economy.
Okay.
And the economy is increasing. Circulation of money, they are employing people. They are employing people. So government can come in through helping microfinance banks, especially in terms of funding. Now there's nothing that prevents a state government from saying, no, we appreciate what you guys are doing. Now, we also intend to alleviate poverty. you call some of these microfinance and say, okay, we are giving so and so soft loan.
Okay,
now,
funds.
Yes, funds.
So there are more loanable funds.
Yes, intervention funds. Yeah,
okay.
Development funds. Give these funds at so and so rate. Do not maybe single digit, so that we can reach a larger number of.
That is one area where microfinance banks in Nigeria have suffered in this country.
Access to funds.
Yeah, access to funds, cheap funds.
Okay.
Government has not remembered us.
Done enough in that area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Even look at the pandemic.
Okay.
The pandemic that ravaged the whole world. No intervention fund was channeled to any microfinance banks.
Okay, so basically we're talking about access to funds. Government should make more funds available to microfinance banks, so that those who rely on them for funds, artisans and those the poor, can have these funds loaned to them at very low interest rates, and then the economy can begin to grow there. Well, this is where we have to rest the conversation today. I wish we had more time, but we're already out of it, and I believe we've been able to deal most areas about microfinance in Nigeria. My name is Blessing Aichi. I've been talking with Mr. Awoba and of course Dr. Ubebo, who are practitioners in the microfinance subsector. Until next week, stay safe.